Hello, I'm Justin D. Jenkins, managing editor of The Quintessential Gentleman, and today I'm here with renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, brother. How you doing?
Doing well myself. Thanks again for taking the time to speak with The Quintessential Gentleman. I know it was recently announced that your documentary, Civil, Ben Crump, will be opening American Black Film Festival, the 26th annual, this June. What does it mean to kind of show this side of your life in front of such a large audience?
I have to give a lot of credit to the genius Kenya Barris, who created Blackish and wrote the movie Girls Trip. He really is focused on being able to expose the Black experience to American society. And the fact that it was his thought working with Cameron Mitchell, my manager, to say people really don't know all that it takes to do what you do, fighting on the front line every day for our people to have a better chance at life living in the pursuit of happiness. So it was, they had to convince me that uh, it was okay to open up my world and let America have a firsthand account of everything we do in this struggle for liberty and justice for our people. And so it was a fascinating experience. Nadia Hallgren, the director, a Puerto Rican sister who also directed Michelle Obama's Becoming, uh, directed Civil.
Yeah.
And she, I mean, that sister, even though I was there, she had the camera following me for 2 years. What she created was just one of the most engaging firsthand accounts of history.
Yeah.
Because I think from 2021 with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, it truly was historic.
Yeah, it was definitely an eye opener. Now, who was it that kind of made you believe that you can even become a lawyer, and especially a lawyer that can actually make a change?
Thurgood Marshall was my personal hero. And so I remember making the decision when I was a little boy, 9 years old in the fourth grade, that I was going to become a lawyer. They had busted little black children open in my hometown of Lumberton, North Carolina, across the tracks from South Lumberton, the black section of town, to uh, North Lumberton, which was the white section of town that had newer schools, newer book, newer facilities, newer technology, just everything new. And I remember one day distinctly coming home, uh, coming back across the tracks into our south side, the black section of town, and I observed that everything was dilapidated. Everything was falling apart. The houses, the cars. I saw my old elementary school that with the lead paint peeling off the walls. And I said to myself, I just wonder why people on a certain side of town have it so good,
Yeah.
seemingly, and people on my side of town have it so challenging. And I remember my mother, bless her soul, Helen Crump, told me that the reason we got to go to the new school with the new technology and the new books was because of NAACP case, Brown versus the Board of Education,
Yeah.
and Attorney Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah.
And I made a decision right then, when I grow up, I'm going to be like Thurgood Marshall. I'm going to be a lawyer like Thurgood Marshall, and I'm going to fight to help people in my community
Yeah.
and people who look like me have a better chance at achieving the American dream.
Yeah.
And that's what I fight every day.
You do, and it's so interesting that being such a young boy and you kind of steadfast in it, and your dreams didn't waver or didn't change, and you overcome all those obstacles. Now, in the documentary, it opens with a call you received from George Floyd's cousin Tara. You can see you were visibly distraught getting the call. What was going on in your head at the time?
Well, you know, that video is a very difficult video to watch because once you see it, you can't unsee that video, that torture video,
Yeah.
which I have the term as a documentary of George Floyd's own death narrated by him.
Yeah.
And it's such a difficult thing because you keep watching the video saying, I know they're gonna take the knee off his neck. I
Mhm.
mean, consideration, professionalism, but your humanity, if nothing else, says take your knee off his neck, and they never do.
Yeah.
And so it's heartbreaking to me as not just a civil rights lawyer, not just as a Black man, but as a human being with humanity. You watch that video, and I'll never forget watching it with my wife. My daughter looked at some parts of it before we told her to stop watching.
Yeah.
And it was shortly before Tara, George Floyd's cousin, called our office. And it was so raw when I was talking to her as she was describing it. I had just saw the video.
Mm.
I could not imagine.
Yeah.
I could not imagine a more painful thing, a more painful way for a person to die than to have the oxygen cut off because somebody was pressing down on your neck with their knee.
Yeah. With all these people watching and videos, and they just didn't know. Yeah. Just heartbreaking. I haven't even watched the whole video. To this day, I couldn't watch the whole video.
Yeah. But
But
that's what I was thinking about, man, and the fact that he called out for his mama
yeah.
at the end, even though his mother had died before him. And the fact that our experts tell us they were not surprised because when you get to the last moments of your life and you still have your conscious mind telling you that your life is leaving your body, they said then your subconscious mind takes over and it's calling out for help. And oftentimes you go back to who was your first protector when you entered into this world. And for most of us, that's our mama.
Yeah.
And so they said they were not surprised at the end, the very end, George Floyd was calling out for his mama.
Yeah. Really, really sad. Now you represent people in civil lawsuits in order to seek financial compensation from harm and wrongdoings. You say your firm goes to try to even the playing field. What does that mean?
Well, really, I'm trying to stop so many of these hashtags from happening. I know it probably won't ever be where we can stop the police from killing any Black people or any marginalized person unjustly, but we just trying to slow down the hashtags. So what I try to do is raise the value of Black life. And I continue to try to do that with every case. In every state I go in, I try to break the record because I'm trying to make them say, we can't, it is financially unsustainable to allow these police to keep shooting Black men in the back or keep choking them to death. You know, we can't afford to do it anymore. And so I try to even the playing field in that aspect with these police brutality cases. But then when it's banking while Black cases, I try to make sure that these banking corporations give Black people access to capital equally and fairly like they do with white people in hopes of trying to close the wealth gap.
Right.
Environmental racism cases, what we try to do is say, we're not gonna have you poison our communities with your chemical companies and these things and think that it's okay.
Yeah.
And then obviously with these cases dealing with discrimination, whether it's State Farm with customer service or whether it's with their employees, what we continue to try to do is even the playing field where young people of color will have every opportunity at climbing the corporate ladder to success, like all of our white brothers and sisters. And so we fight injustice and racism wherever it rears its ugly head in any kind of case. And that's what I'm trying to do, even the playing field.
That's so interesting, and something that I've learned just, watching you and watching documentary, is the financial part of it. And you say, like, making it financially unsustainable to kill, Black men and women. Can you talk about why is that important and how that can actually make a change?
The financial aspect, say it again, I'm sorry.
No, the financial aspect of it. How
Can
why
you
is that
repeat
so
the
important?
question?
How that can actually make a change?
Oh, with us raising the value of Black life?
Yes.
I think a lot of times I wrote a book called Open Season, The Legalized Genocide of Colored People. And in that book, chapter 2 was entitled The Police Don't Shoot White Men in the Back.
Uh-huh.
And I think there's a reason they don't, because they know if they did, lightning will strike and thunder will roll. But when they shoot Black men in the back, they say it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they aren't being held accountable. They're not going to prison, and because of qualified immunity, they're not having to pay out anything. So what is the disincentive of them continuing to do the cowardly act of shooting us in the back?
Mhm.
And there is none unless we strategically figure out a way to hold them accountable.
Mhm.
And I think many times we have to be able to sustain the legal battle to fight them. And that's why I do a lot of personal injury and mass tort work to make money, to be able to do the nobility of civil rights, because civil rights is not very profitable. As I say in the documentary, my law partners would rather I don't do as many civil rights cases. They think we make a lot more money easier and quicker than civil rights cases. But I understand who I am and who I'm fighting for. And so to me, the money is not the end all. Now we're in business, but the mission when I wake up every day is to be an unapologetic defender
Yeah.
of Black life, Black liberty, and Black humanity.
Yeah.
That's every day. And I wake up, I'm never confused as what my objective is.
Staying on that mission. And it's so important. And it's interesting because you actually been on this mission since you left law school. You turned down all of these jobs to continue that mission. Well, what made you stay fast in that? And the money wasn't an influence, and you kind of just you wanted to do this. You just wanted to see the change.
I truly believe that we can do good in life and do well.
Yeah.
They're not, mutually exclusive of one another.
Mhm.
Doing good for people and prospering is something that can be a win-win for everybody. And we have to go do that. I remember Harry Belafonte told me at the Trayvon Martin anniversary dinner years back, he said, Ben Crump, what you did, you made it in vogue to be a civil rights lawyer again. He said, in the 60s coming into the 70s, everybody was focused on civil rights. They were engaged and aspired to do civil rights work. He said, but then, the 80s came, everybody went for money, and it was all about how much money you could make.
Yeah.
And people didn't do civil rights anymore. And he said with Trayvon Martin in 2012, you have reignited that fire inside people
Yeah.
to go out and say, we fighting for the civil rights of our people, our community, our culture. And that was one of the biggest compliments I've ever gotten.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see the fire that you ignite and the movement that you created. Powerful part in the documentary, and obviously it's been some time since, but to see the protests that went around the world after George Floyd died, outside of getting justice for him and his family, what responsibility did you feel every morning when you took on that case?
I knew we had to get justice, whole justice for George Floyd. So we got the highest amount ever paid out for the police excessive for a civil rights case in America. And then we got the verdict, guilty, 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 Derek Chauvin and all the other officers. So that's something that has never been done in America, to get those many officers criminally convicted and get such a high civil settlement. But the other aspect of it was how I think George Floyd changed the world, raising the consciousness level that Black people lives matter, and we don't have to be perfect or white collar and so forth, because none of the white people are perfect people, white collar, but they still are deserving of equal justice and due process of the law. The basic tenets of humanity, we owe them that. And George Floyd raised the consciousness level of Black humanity in the world, because I think when a lot of our white brothers and sisters still was kind of on the fence on police brutality, saying, well, we don't know if it's as bad as Black people and Hispanic people say it is. But when you watch that video, there was no doubt. You had to conclude that this was not only brutal, not only excessive, but it was inhumane to hear a man say 28 times begging for his life, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And for the police officer who had an obligation to preserve life, take his life.
Yeah.
That's how George Floyd changed the world. It's the consciousness level now, it's in their mind. Once you see that video, you can't unsee that video. And I believe they said that video has been seen like 50 million times worldwide.
Yeah, and definitely sparked this new type of revolution. The documentary also go through other cases that you've taken on. It filmed throughout throughout 2020, 2021. One of the cases was Andre Hill, and you sat with the family of Andre Hill. You talked about them showing their righteous anger, and you spoke about, at press conferences, say that, he loved to play chess and he loved life. It seemed like you was already fighting what you knew the media might portray him as, or the courtroom might portray him as, and kind of use the press to your advantage.
Absolutely. We have to humanize the victims of this police brutality, because we know after they assassinate their person, then the playbook is for them to assassinate their character. And so I understand when you're fighting for a marginalized person of color in the United States of America, we have to fight in two courts. First, we have to fight in the court of public opinion. And then if we win there, then maybe, just maybe, we might get to fight in the court of law.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee, but it's a good chance if you can win in the court of public opinion, you're going to be able to prevail in the court of law, at least get your case into the court of law. No guarantee, because Eric Gardner, I believe, won in the court of public opinion, but never to this day has gotten that day in the court of law. And obviously, our Queen Breonna Taylor never got her day in court neither.
Yeah. And it's so unfortunate. And you've represented, Breonna Taylor and Trayvon Martin, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless others. How do you hold your head high and continue to, have hope when you have like a front row seat to such, tragedies?
Well, it is emotional, because you do get extremely close to the families and you become almost like a family member. And so it's so emotional, it's so hard. Yeah. But what I try to do to keep myself engaged is to stay completely focused on the mission of getting accountability and justice for our people. And so that's what drives me every day, is that I can't, get too emotionally spent, because I know there's another family who lost a son or a daughter who is going to require us to be that North Star for them and navigate them through the worst time of their life. I mean, especially parents losing a child, and even if a child loses a parent, it's just extremely difficult to try to make sense of the world when you see such a senseless, shocking loss, like George Floyd, like Breonna Taylor, like Ahmaud Arbery, like Andre Hill, like Fred Cox, like AJ Crooms and Sincere Pierce, all these people who we talk about in the documentary, it is they their lives are shattered.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them don't even know how to get out of bed the next morning. That's how devastated they are by the sudden loss. And so we're fighting to keep them, you know, going forward in a positive direction. That's why I have to keep it together, because they're looking at me as somebody who they can lean on.
Yeah.
People in my law firm. So we become more than just lawyers. We become counselors at law, attorneys and counselors at law. And that's a true way to say it, because the attorney fighting in the courtroom, the counselor is trying to help counsel the people and get them through this ordeal.
Yeah. Definitely. Another aspect in the documentary, you talk about images. You say they matter. Can you talk about why and what that does for radical change in our justice system?
Yeah, you know, when we were in Virginia, where they projected George Floyd's image on the Confederate general statue, it was profound, because images do matter. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and without anybody saying anything, it tells you so much. It tells you what the value system is. It tells you what we believe in. It tells you with this monument or this statue what we deem to be important. So when you put Confederate generals up on horses, what it's telling us is you think Black people are inferior to you. You think Black people don't deserve consideration and respect, because if you did, you wouldn't be trying to take us back to a time where they celebrated us being slaves.
Yeah.
You know, images matter in such a profound way because they get in our subconscious mind too. And without us even thinking about it, it's already in our subconscious mind. When you think about all the names of the schools being named after Confederate generals in these southern towns, and they having all these statues and these images that glorify and project white supremacy, which I had said in the film is a affront to the Declaration of Independence. This often quoted line that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally, that they're endowed by, they're created with certain inalienable rights, that amongst them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, that Confederate statue contradicts completely what the Declaration of Independence say. So we have to continue to hold a mirror to America's face and say, you at least got to acknowledge the hypocrisy, because as they taught us in law school, once you on notice is 2/3 of the law, because once you on notice, you have a duty to act. You have a duty to do something at that point.
Definitely. That's why it's important for us, our community, to show, different sides of how we are, the images that we're projecting, and people are seeing how we look. Now, how are you able to focus on your mental health and show up for your family and your daughter? You have a really a nice scene in the documentary when you was picking out a suit, but you're still taking a call and your daughter was trying to help you pick out a suit. So what do you do for your mental health and to show up and be, a father and a husband?
You know, I understand two things. I understand what we're fighting for. This fight is not just about us in the present day. This is about our children.
Yeah.
And our children's future, and they worth the fight. And when I fight for, all these people who I didn't know until death, what I'm really fighting is that little girl, and my little nephew Chancellor, and your young people in your family. That's what we're really fighting for.
Yeah.
We're not just fighting for this tragic situation. We're fighting for there to be policy changes, to be accountability, for there to be due process for America to live up to its promise to us as citizens, no matter what the color of our skin is. That's what we're fighting for. And that's why I keep my mental health, because I know, based on precedent of what Black people have overcame in America, whether it was being defined as 3/5 of a human being at the founding of this country, whether it was being termed to not have any rights that a white person is bound to respect per the Dred Scott decision, decided by the United States Supreme Court, or whether it's how they treated us in Reconstruction, how they treated us with Plessy v. Ferguson, separate but equal when the conditions were anything but unequal. Jim Crow, how we overcame that, how we overcame Jim Crow Jr. PhD. And so what that tells me, and why I have mental peace, is based on precedent of what Black people have overcome in America. We gonna be all right.
Yeah, we're gonna be all
no
right.
matter what the enemies of equality throw at us.
I love that. I love that. Now, what do you hope the audience get after watching this powerful documentary?
You know, I think obviously one thing people often quote me as my mission: an unapologetic defender of Black life, Black liberty, and Black humanity. But I really think it's the last scene of the movie. The last lines when I say, what we have to endeavor to do, especially the young people, is go out and say things in the world that are not being said, to do things in the world that are not being done. That's our mission, what I want people to remember and take away from, with the fact that the very last thing I say is the enemies of equality will not win this war. It will be the moral people who win this war. We're going to win this war for our children.
Yeah, we definitely will. Now, my last question is, any plans to run for office?
No, no. Everybody has a role to play. God has given me my mission, and my mission is fighting in and out of courtrooms for marginalized people and making sure that they have an equal opportunity at life and liberty in the pursuit of happiness.
That's awesome. Well, listen, Ben Crump, this has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate it. The film is amazing. I can't wait for the audience to see it. Congratulations on it. And, you know, we will definitely be in touch. And again, thank you for all that you do. You definitely are inspiring a generation, my generation, friends of mine, everyone that we're talking about. So such a pleasure to be able to chat with you today.
All of us mine, brother. Make sure you send me my sweatshirt, extra large.
You're going to get the sweatshirt. I'll make sure.
Extra large.
Extra large. Okay. Perfect. You said the black and gold, right?
Well, purple and gold if you got it.
Purple and gold. Okay, I think we have purple and gold.
I'll take the Omega colors.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be in touch soon.